Long before men built cities or carved temples into stone, the world was silent. There was no land, no sun, no moon, and no stars. Only the vast sky above and the endless sea below existed, stretching into eternity. Between them, there was nothing but stillness. Yet within this stillness stirred the first thoughts of creation in the Mayan tradition. The gods who dreamed of life were known as the heart of sky and the heart of earth. They were not gods of thunder or war, but of wisdom and vision. Together they whispered, "Let there be land, let there be mountains, let there be rivers and valleys." At their command the earth rose from the waters. Hills swelled, rivers wound through valleys, and forests began to stretch upward. The empty world was no longer silent. The heart of sky scattered the first light across the heavens. The stars glimmered faintly, promising a dawn yet to come. Clouds drifted and rains fell, filling rivers and lakes. Birds flew into the air, their songs carrying joy where silence had once ruled. Fish darted in the rivers, deer leapt across the forests, and jaguars prowled through the shadows. Creation had begun, and the gods watched with wonder. Meanwhile, in the Aztec tradition, the first god was Amitaitl, the dual spirit of creation, both male and female, both father and mother. From Amitaitl came the heavens themselves, layered like steps, reaching higher and higher. From these heavens, the other gods would emerge, each with a role to play in shaping the world. It was a reminder that creation was not the work of one hand, but of many, each adding harmony to the great design. Yet even as mountains rose and stars shone, something was missing. The world was beautiful, but it lacked keepers. The gods longed for beings who could speak, who could remember, who could honor the dawn. They dreamed of humans who would walk the earth, tend the land, and offer gratitude for the gifts of creation. The thought of humanity took root, but it would not be an easy birth. Many attempts would follow, some failing, some crumbling, till the true people were formed. But for now, the first dawn was a time of peace. The gods looked upon the world and smiled. They saw rivers shining like silver threads, mountains glowing in starlight, and forests whispering in the night. It was a beginning, fragile and bright. As the night deepens around you, imagine standing at that first dawn. The sea is calm, the sky is wide, and the earth is just awakening. You hear the voices of the gods whispering in the wind, shaping valleys and rivers, scattering stars across the heavens. It is a moment of stillness and wonder, the very breath of creation. And in that breath, you feel the promise of all life yet to come. The four suns, cycles of destruction and renewal. The ancient Aztecs believed that the world was not created just once, but many times, each age born beneath a different sun. These were not suns as we see today, but divine ages, each with its own balance, its own destiny, and its own tragic end. Their stories were told to remind humanity of the fragile line between creation and destruction, and the eternal cycle of renewal. The first age was called the Son of Jaguars. In this time, giants walked the earth, towering above forests and rivers. They were strong but reckless, and they forgot the gods who had given them life. Angered, the gods sent jaguars to roam the land, fierce and hungry. The giants were torn apart, and the age ended in shadow and blood. From the ashes of this destruction rose the second sun, known as the Son of Wind. This was a lighter world, where people lived smaller lives, their homes touched by gentle breezes. But balance did not last. The wind turned fierce and hurricanes swept across the earth. Entire villages were carried away, trees uprooted, rivers dried. The people themselves were lifted by the storm and scattered, transformed into monkeys, their laughter echoing through the forests as a reminder of that forgotten age. The gods, Unwilling to abandon creation, tried again. The third sun, the son of fire, lit the world with blazing strength. Here, people lived beneath a burning sky, the air alive with heat. For a time, they thrived, building homes and temples. But the fire grew too strong. Volcanoes erupted, rivers boiled, and the very sky rained fire upon the earth. Few survived, and the world was once more left in ruins. Then came the fourth sun, the son of water. It was a gentler time, with lakes and oceans stretching farther than ever before. Humanity flourished by the shorelines, their lives tied to the gifts of the sea. But water, too, can be merciless. Rains fell endlessly, and soon floods swallowed the land. Mountains disappeared beneath waves, and the people were transformed into fish, swimming in the endless waters that covered the world. Each sun ended in destruction, but from each destruction came renewal. The Aztecs believed that we now live beneath the fifth sun, born from the sacrifice of the gods themselves. This world, too, is fragile. Its survival dependent on balance, respect, and the devotion of humanity to the forces that created it. For the Aztecs, the four suns were not just tales of the past, they were warnings for the present. Each age ended because balance was broken, because pride or neglect tipped the scales, and yet, after every fall, creation returned, showing that even in loss, there is always hope. As you drift into sleep, imagine the sky shifting from age to age, each sun rising and falling. See the giants, the monkeys, the fire, the floods, and finally the dawn of the fifth sun shining warmly upon the earth. The story whispers gently, nothing lasts forever, but from every ending comes a new beginning. The Popol Vuh, the failed creations of Mayan, the sacred book of the Maya. Known as the Popol Vuh, lies the tale of how the gods struggled to create mankind. It was not done in a single moment, nor with a single breath. Instead, it took many attempts, each one teaching the gods and humanity lessons of fragility, imperfection, and destiny. At first, the world was empty of voices. The rivers ran, the trees swayed, the birds sang, but no beings existed to honor the gods, to remember them in prayer, or to keep their stories alive. The gods, led by the heart of sky, looked upon the earth and said, "Let us make humans, so that they may keep our names upon their lips." Their first attempt was with mud. From the soft clay of rivers, they shaped figures with arms, legs, and faces. For a moment, the mudmen stood, their bodies fragile and wet. But soon they crumbled, unable to hold form. Rain dissolved them, and their words were weak, their steps unsteady. The gods saw this and shook their heads. These cannot stand the test of time. The second attempt was with wood. Carving from the trees of the forests, the gods shaped wooden people. These men and women were stronger than mud, able to walk, speak, and multiply. Yet they had no souls, no hearts. They spoke, but their words were empty. They moved, but their eyes carried no light. They forgot the gods, living without gratitude, without memory. The heart of sky grew angry. These are hollow, without love or reverence. And so, destruction came. A flood washed over the wooden people, their houses collapsing into the water. Animals they had mistreated rose against them. Their tools and belongings turned upon them. Even their dogs and turkeys, once their companions, cried out, "You gave us no respect, now feel the same." The wooden people were scattered, their hollow bodies splintered. Some say their remnants still linger as monkeys in the trees, forever chattering, forever restless. The gods reflected on these failures. Mud was too weak, wood too empty. Humanity had to be more than shape and voice. It needed spirit, a living bond with the divine. The gods paused, watching the earth, listening for the answer hidden within it. The Popol Vuh tells us that these first creations were not mistakes, but lessons. They showed the gods what was lacking, what was essential. A body without soul crumbles. A voice without gratitude fades. The gods would try again, but they now knew that humanity had to be made of something sacred. Something that carried life itself as you drift into dreams tonight. Imagine those first fragile figures of mud dissolving in the rain, and the hollow wooden people wandering without spirit. Hear the whisper of the gods as they ponder their next attempt, searching for a material worthy of life. Their quest was not yet over. For from failure would rise the true people, the children of maize, the birth of the true people, men of maize after. The failed creations of mud and wood. The gods knew that something greater was needed. Humanity could not be weak like clay, nor hollow like timber. They needed a body that would endure, a spirit that would remember, and a heart that would honor the divine. The gods searched for the essence of life, something sacred that tied heaven to earth, and in time, their eyes turned to the humble grain that sustained the Maya maize. Maize was more than food. It was the golden thread of existence, the gift that nourished body and soul alike. Its stalks rose tall in the fields, whispering in the wind like a choir of voices. Its kernels carried every color of the dawn, yellow like sunlight, red like fire, white like the moon, and black like the night sky. The gods saw in maize the perfect balance of strength and spirit. From the white maize, they shaped the bones of the first humans. From the yellow maize, they formed their flesh. Ground together, the kernels became the dough of life, and with divine breath, the gods gave it voice, memory, and soul. Thus, the first true people were born, not fragile, not hollow, but strong and sacred, bound to the very food that sustained them. These first men and women opened their eyes beneath the rising sun, and for the first time humanity spoke with gratitude. They lifted their voices in prayer, praising the gods who had given them life. They remembered their creators, and in their memory, the gods found joy. For this was what they had longed for, beings who could honor the dawn, carry stories, and keep the sacred alive. The Maya called themselves the people of maize, and for all generations, they saw corn not only as food, but as the very essence of who they were. Every meal, every harvest, every ritual was an act of reverence. Children were told, "Your body is maize, your spirit is maize. Treat it with respect, and it will carry you through life." The story of the men of maize was also a reminder of balance. To forget the sacredness of maize was to forget one's own soul. To waste it was to waste life itself. Thus, rituals of thanksgiving were held at every planting and every harvest. Priests offered prayers, dancers celebrated with music, and the people placed the first kernels back into the earth, returning life to the soil so that it could be born again as the night deepens. Imagine the first dawn of humanity, men and women rising from the maize fields, their skin glowing like kernels of gold, their eyes bright as stars. They breathe, they speak, they remember. In their hearts burns gratitude, in their bodies flows maize, and in their souls shines the divine. The gods smiled, for at last their creation was complete. Humanity had been born, fragile yet strong, mortal yet sacred, children of earth, sky, and corn. The hero twins, Hunap and Zabalanquimong. The most beloved stories in Mayan mythology is the tale of the hero twins, Hunap and Zabalanq. Their names are whispered with both laughter and reverence. For they were not only clever tricksters but also brave warriors who brought light where darkness tried to reign. Their story begins with tragedy, yet it blossoms into triumph, long before the twins were born. Their father and uncle had angered the lords of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld. These lords were cruel and cunning, delighting in torment. They summoned the brothers to play the sacred ball game, but it was no friendly sport. In the dark courts of Xibalba, the ball was heavy, and the stakes were life itself. The brothers were tricked, defeated, and sacrificed. Their bones ground and scattered, but life finds its way. From this loss came new hope. For Hinop and Xbalanque were born to continue what their father could not finish. From childhood, they showed gifts beyond ordinary elves or men. They were quick of mind, playful in spirit, and bold in heart. They hunted, fished, and played their own ball games, filling the air with laughter. Yet they carried destiny in their blood. When the lords of Xibalba once more grew restless, they called for the twins to descend. The underworld was a place of trials, rivers of scorpions, houses filled with darkness, blades that moved like living things. At every turn, the lords sought to trick them, to break their courage. But Hinop and Xbalanque met each trial with wit as much as strength in the House of Darkness. They carried torches that never went out. In the House of Knives, they charmed the blades with words. When sent to retrieve impossible tasks, they found clever ways to complete them, turning every trap into a lesson. The lords watched with growing unease, for the twins were not so easily defeated. Their greatest challenge came with the ball game of life and death. The lords placed before them a ball made not of rubber, but of blades, sharp enough to cut. Yet the twins laughed, played skillfully, and turned even the lords' cruelest tricks back upon them. With each victory, they weakened the power of Ixabel. At last, Hunop was slain, his body cast away. Xbalanque, heartbroken but determined, used magic to restore his brother, showing that death could be overcome with cunning and love. Together, the twins turned the underworld's own traps against its masters. In the end, the lords of Xibalba were defeated. Their reign of terror dimmed. The hero twins rose from the underworld, not as mere mortals, but as celestial beings. Some say they became the sun and the moon, forever chasing one another across the sky. Others say their laughter still echoes in the wind, reminding humanity of courage, cleverness, and brotherhood. As you rest tonight, imagine walking beside the hero twins in the dark courts of Xibalba. Hear their laughter in the face of danger. Feel their courage as they outwit shadows. And see their triumph as light bursts forth from the underworld. Their tale whispers, "No darkness lasts forever when courage and love walk hand in hand." The ball game of life and death in the world of the Maya. There was a game unlike any other, a sacred contest played not only for sport, but for the very balance of the cosmos. This was the ball game, a struggle between day and night, life and death, light and shadow. To watch it was to witness the turning of the universe itself. The court was long and narrow, stone walls rising like guardians on either side. At its center stood stone rings, high above the ground, through which the heavy rubber ball had to be passed. Yet players were forbidden to use their hands. Instead, they struck the ball with hips, shoulders, and knees, moving with rhythm and strength that seemed almost like dance. For the Maya, this was no ordinary pastime. The ball game was a symbol of the sun's journey across the sky, rising in the east, moving through the heavens, and finally sinking into the underworld. Every strike of the ball, every bounce upon the stone court, echoed with cosmic meaning. Victory and defeat were not measured in points alone, but in the balance they brought to the world. The most famous tale tied to the game was that of the hero twins, Hunop and Xbalanque, who descended into the underworld to face the lords of Xibalba. The lords believed the game would be the twins' doom. For the court of Xibalba was not of stone alone, but of darkness, deceit, and traps. The ball itself was a weapon, sometimes filled with blades or even the skulls of the dead. Yet the twins played with courage and wit, turning every trick back upon their enemies. With each bounce of the ball, it reminded the lords that light cannot be extinguished by shadow. But the ball game was not only myth. Across Mayan cities, great courts were built, where people gathered to watch the contests. Some games were held for celebration, others for sacred ritual. In some places, captives were forced to play, their fate tied to victory or sacrifice. For the Mayas, sacrifice was not cruelty, but offering the belief that life given would nourish the gods and ensure the sun's eternal journey. Legends tell of how, when the ball struck the stone ring, it was as though the heavens themselves thundered in response. The people would cheer, believing the balance of the world had been renewed for another day. The game was both fearsome and beautiful, a dance of life and death, reminding all that existence itself was a contest where courage and fate were always in play. As you drift into dreams tonight, imagine standing on the edge of the court. The moon glows above, torches flicker, and the ball bounces rhythmically upon the stone. Each strike echoes like a heartbeat, each movement telling the story of the sun and the shadows. The ball game whispers across time. Life is fragile, yet through courage and balance, it continues, just as the sun rises again after every night. Quetzalcoatl and the creation of humanity among the Aztec gods? None was more beloved than Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. He was both wise and gentle, a bringer of knowledge, wind, and life itself. His name was whispered with reverence, for it was through his sacrifice that humanity came to be, long ago. After the destruction of the earlier suns, the world lay in silence. Mountains stood tall, rivers flowed, and forests grew. But the earth had no people. The gods gathered to decide how to restore humanity. They knew that without humans to pray, to sing, and to honor the sacred cycles, creation would be incomplete. It was Quetzalcoatl who took upon himself the task of recreating mankind. To do so, he had to travel into the underworld, Mictlan, the realm of the dead. They are hidden in shadowed caverns. Lay the bones of those who had lived in the ages before, the remnants of humanity lost in the earlier suns. Only these bones could serve as the seed for new life. With courage and humility, Quetzalcoatl descended into Mictlan. The lord of the underworld, Mictlantecuhtli, sought to trick him, for he did not wish to give up the bones. He demanded Quetzalcoatl prove his worth, sending him through endless trials, carrying the bones across fields filled with traps, fleeing from deadly animals, and passing through mountains that crashed together like jaws. Quetzalcoatl endured them all. Yet even he stumbled at the last moment. The Lord of Mictlan startled him, and he fell, the bones scattering and breaking into pieces. But Quetzalcoatl gathered them again, their cracks and fragments no obstacle. For he knew that humanity need not be perfect. It needed only to live, to love, and to honor the gods. When he returned from the underworld, Quetzalcoatl carried the bones to the other gods. He ground them like maize upon a sacred stone, mixing them into a fine meal. Then, cutting his own skin, he let his divine blood flow into the mixture. From this union of bone and blood, humanity was reborn, fragile yet enduring, mortal yet sacred. The Aztecs believed that this act of sacrifice tied humanity forever to Quetzalcoatl. Just as maize nourished the body, his blood nourished the soul. Every man and woman carried within them both the bones of the ancestors and the divine spark of the feathered serpent. For this reason, Quetzalcoatl was honored not only as a god but as a teacher. He was said to have given the people maize, fire, and knowledge of writing and crafts. To follow his ways was to live with humility, kindness, and reverence for life. As you drift into dreams tonight, imagine the feathered serpent gliding gracefully across the sky. Feathers gleaming like emeralds, body coiled with light. Below, the earth awakens with new life, people rising from the soil, carrying the essence of bone and blood. The story whispers gently, though we are fragile, we are sacred, born of sacrifice, and bound forever to the gods who gave us life. The fifth sun and the sacrifice of the gods in Aztec belief. The world was fragile, forever reborn through cycles of creation and destruction. 4 suns had already risen and fallen, each world destroyed by jaguars, wind, fire, or flood. And so the gods gathered at Teotihuacan, the sacred city of the gods, decide how the new world, the fifth sun, would be born. The great fire was kindled at the center of the city. Around it stood the gods, each radiant with divine power, yet each hesitant. For they knew that to create the new sun, one of them must leap into the fire, sacrificing themselves so the heavens could shine once more. The air was heavy with silence. The first god to step forward was proud and magnificent, adorned with feathers and jewels. His voice rang clear, "I shall be the sun." Yet as he approached the flames, his courage faltered. The fire blazed too fiercely and he turned aside. Then came Nanawatson, a humble and scarred god, poor in wealth but rich in spirit. Unlike the others, he carried no jewels, only humility. Without hesitation, he closed his eyes and leapt into the fire. The flames consumed him, and in that instant, the sky blazed with light. The sun had been born, its golden rays spreading across the heavens, shamed. The proud god finally followed, leaping into the fire as well. He too was transformed, becoming the moon. Yet his light was pale compared to the brilliance of Nanawatson's sacrifice. The gods placed ash upon his face, dimming his glow so that the sun would always shine brighter. But the story did not end there. Though the sun had been created, it hung motionless in the sky. The world was lit, but it did not move. Once again, silence fell over Teotihuacan. Then the gods understood. The sun could not move on its own. It needed their sacrifice, their life force. To carry it across the heavens, one by one, the gods gave their blood, their strength, and their essence. Some say Quetzalcoatl himself struck down the others, offering their hearts to fuel the journey of the sun. From that moment forward, the sun began its eternal path, rising each morning, setting each night, bringing life to the earth for the Aztecs. This myth explained the sacred duty of sacrifice. It was not cruelty, but gratitude, a way to sustain the balance. By offering blood, by offering gifts, they repaid the gods who had given everything so that the fifth sun might shine. Every dawn was a reminder of that divine fire at Teotihuacan, and every heartbeat carried the echo of sacrifice. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine standing in the city of the gods, the fire blazing in the center, the heavens waiting. See Nanawatson leap into the flames, humble yet radiant, and watch as the sky fills with golden light. The sun begins its journey, steady and eternal, carrying with it the promise of life born from sacrifice. The sacred calendar and the weaving of time to the Maya and the Aztecs. Time was not a simple line stretching from past to future. It was a great weaving, a living pattern spun by the gods, where each day, each season, and each cycle carried meaning. The people believed that to understand time was to understand the very heartbeat of the universe. The Maya created the Tzolk'in, a sacred calendar of 260 days. Each day had its own spirit, its own guardian, and its own power. Some days were blessings, filled with luck and abundance. Others were warnings, teaching caution and humility. Priests studied the calendar carefully, guiding the people in when to plant maize, when to begin journeys, and when to hold ceremonies. To them, the calendar was more than numbers. It was the song of the gods, written in time itself. The Aztecs had their own sacred count, the Tonopahuli, also of 260 days. Each day was tied to a symbol: jaguar, eagle, reed, serpent, and many more. These were not mere images, but living forces. To be born on a certain day meant carrying its spirit throughout life. A child born under the day of the eagle was believed to be courageous, always seeking the heights. One born under the serpent carried wisdom and renewal. In this way, time shaped not only the seasons, but also the souls of men. The great sunstone, Aztec calendar stone, was carved with these sacred cycles. Its face was filled with symbols of the gods, the four past suns, and the current fifth sun at its center. Around it spiraled the days, each etched carefully to remind the people that their lives were woven into the cosmic fabric. When the priests stood before it, they were not reading fate, but listening to the voices of time itself. But time was not feared. For both the Maya and the Aztecs, cycles meant renewal, just as the sun set each night and rose each morning. Just as maize died in harvest and was reborn in planting, so too did time turn endlessly. Endings were beginnings in disguise. Every cycle carried the promise of rebirth. Legends say that the gods themselves walked the threads of time. Some believed they could weave new strands, altering the future. Others said the gods simply kept the loom steady, ensuring that the fabric did not unravel. Humanity's duty was to live in harmony with this weaving, to honor the sacred days, to walk with respect, and to keep balance with the turning cycles. As the night deepens, imagine standing before a great stone calendar, its carvings glowing faintly in moonlight. You trace the spirals with your hand and feel the rhythm of time pulsing beneath your skin. Each beat of your heart matches the turning of the cycles, each breath a reminder that you are part of the weaving. The calendar whispers gently, time is not an enemy, but a gift, a sacred pattern, carrying us forward into light again and again. The eternal balance, light, darkness, and the human role in the myths of both the Maya and the Aztecs. One truth rises again and again. The universe is a balance. Light and darkness, life and death, creation and destruction. None can exist without the other. To live was to walk this delicate path, to honor both the gifts and the trials that the gods had woven into existence. The Maya spoke of the hero twins, who descended into the shadows of Xibalba and rose again, showing that even in the deepest darkness, courage and wit could bring light. The Aztecs told of the suns that rose and fell, each age destroyed, yet each giving birth to a new dawn. These stories were not tales of despair, but of resilience. They taught that endings were not final, and that within every loss, renewal waited patiently. The gods themselves embodied this balance. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, gave life through sacrifice, blending death and rebirth into one act. Nenahuatzin leapt into fire, humble and unafraid, so that the sun could rise and shine upon the earth. Even the fearsome lords of Xibalba were part of the cycle, for without darkness, there could be no test of light. For the Maya and the Aztecs, humanity had a role in this eternal rhythm. It was not enough to simply exist. People were meant to remember the gods, to honor the cycles, to live with gratitude and humility. Through prayer, song, ritual, and sacrifice, they gave back a portion of what was given to them. Every offering of maize, every drop of blood, every whispered prayer was a way of keeping the balance steady. But beyond ritual, balance was also lived in daily life. To respect the earth, to treat one another with kindness, to walk with courage, these too were sacred acts. Just as the maize grew tall when cared for, so too did the spirit flourish when tended with love and reverence. Forgetfulness, greed, and cruelty, on the other hand, invited imbalance. The same forces that had ended the earlier suns, legends told that if humanity failed to honor the balance, even the fifth sun would one day falter. The world, like all before it, would face destruction. Yet the stories always left a thread of hope. Even if this sun were to end, another would rise, and life would continue, renewed once again, for the cycle itself was eternal. And within it lived the promise of rebirth. As you prepare to drift into dreams, imagine yourself standing at the edge of dawn. The sun is rising, its golden rays touching mountains, rivers, and forests. Behind you, the stars fade into the horizon, carrying the memory of night. Before you, the day begins, filled with both trials and blessings. You are part of this balance, light and dark, joy and sorrow, beginnings and endings. The myths whisper softly. You too carry the sacred role of keeping harmony, walking gently upon the earth, and remembering always that life is both fragile and eternal.